The road to medical school has many steps, and for first-year students, it can feel especially overwhelming. Joining us this week on the Honor Roll podcast is Florida MedConnect as they talk about research, professional development, and mentorship. Stay tuned. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome back to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast for the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Reva Gandhi, a fourth-year student studying biomedical sciences and public health. My co-host this week is Fabiana Requena. She's a fourth-year student studying marketing and business analytics. Welcome back, Fabi. How has your semester been going so far?
It's been amazing, Reva. I'm really excited to be on the podcast today.
I really can't believe that we're seniors and this is our second to last semester.
I know. It's coming to a close. I can't believe it. How's your semester been?
It's been good. I've just been kind of prepping for plans after graduation and trying to just enjoy the last few moments I have here. I mean, I have a whole year left, but it feels like it's going to go by so soon.
It will.
As you know, we always like to start off with our one big question. So my question this week for you, Fabi, is as you prepare for your future career, what sort of obstacles have you overcome?
I would say that as a business student, it's an extremely competitive environment, as I'm sure it is as a pre-health major. But finding the time to go out there and network, look for new opportunities, look for upcoming job opportunities, while balancing all of the extracurriculars, being a full-time student, being involved on campus can be really a struggle. So it's taken me, 3, almost 4 years to figure it out, and I'm still learning every single day. What about you?
I think it's very similar, finding connections, networking, but I would take it a step further and I would say my path is very much laid out for me, especially, being pre-med and going into a career where, the only way to do it is by going to medical school. But being the first person in my family to do so, it's kind of finding mentors who will guide me in a way that still makes my path unique. And I think that was one of my big goals coming into undergrad. And I think I've accomplished it pretty well over the years. But I think that is one of the biggest obstacles we face.
I would say you've done a fantastic job, Reva.
Thank you so much. And speaking of, finding your own path and finding opportunities and resources, we're excited to welcome self-starters and honor students Shivanshu Kumar and Elaine as they share the inside story on how they founded Florida MedConnect, a student organization for pre-medical students, all while balancing the roles of full-time students here at USF and at the Honors College.
Are you interested in getting engaged with public policy? You want to connect with local and national leaders to make a real difference? Well, the Wilcox Scholars Program may be the perfect fit for you. For more information, visit our website to learn more about our program and the application process.
Hi, Shivanshu and Elaine. Would you both like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Elaine. I'm currently a third-year biomedical sciences student at USF, and I currently serve as the vice president of Florida MedConnect.
Similar to her, I'm Shivanshu, third-year biomedical sciences student, but president of Florida MedConnect.
We are so excited that you're here joining us about the organization MedConnect that you started at USF. But before we begin, I'd like to go back to how you two first met and how the story started.
So we first met at an honors class. I think it was called
It's pure mentoring.
Peer mentoring or something.
Honors
and
Foundations.
Like
yeah,
the first
Honors
semester.
Foundations, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Honors Foundation, and our peer mentor had this activity where we were practicing interviews, and she paired us up together to do interviews together. And then I think from then we kind of realized how similar our academic interests were, and we kind of just started talking more, and then became friends through then. Do you want to elaborate, Shivanshu?
Yeah, I mean, first time we did the interview, she started laughing the whole class. So after that, it was pretty easy to become friends. But after after talking a little more, then we were like, yeah, I think like we're pretty aligned in like our interests in the future. And the fact that we both lived in Kelly's pod, that made life a lot easier for us to discuss a lot of things. So
And that was when you lived in the Honors LLC?
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we were at Juniper and the Honors LLC together. All of us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So prior to starting college, did you both see yourself pursuing a career in health? And how did you know that USF would be the right fit for you?
For me, I knew since high school that I wanted to pursue something in healthcare. I really just wanted a career that was satisfying and also really gratifying for me. And I think healthcare was really that and something that I knew I could do for like a long period of time. Yeah, so I came to USF because I was doing the 7-year BSMD program. Once I came here, I really realized like all of the opportunities that USF had, and I was like, this is such an amazing place for a pre-medical student specifically, just because of like the myriad of opportunities that USF has. There's like research, volunteering, and anything that you can make, you can do it yourself, which I think is also like amazing that USF gives you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was coming out of high school, I was sure that medicine would definitely be like the right field for me. I wasn't sure like doctor or wise otherwise, but as I went through college, I figured that out a little bit more for myself. But what made medicine like the right choice for me was when I was shadowing, it was just like so gratifying to see like the patients always be happy when the doctor walked in, and I was like, if I could be in that white coat, I'd trade anything in the world for it. And so that really made my decision pretty easy to me. And so when I got to USF, it was the combined fact that there was a lot of opportunities here, especially extracurricular wise, for a medical student, as well as any type of student. There's 30,000 students here, right? And so what really makes it nice here is that any type of idea, I'm sure you could find at least 100 students that'll like it as well. And so that's what made USF like an easy decision for me, because you can find a community here like every single time. So that was the right decision in my mind.
No, I totally get that. I think being a pre-med student myself, I think it's really hard to find a community at times, but then at the same time, such a big university can feel so small, even when you're balancing so many competing priorities, which, as you know, there's a lot that is involved being a pre-med student. You have to do that research, you have to do volunteering. So, what sort of challenges or difficulties as you guys became friends did you start to find that inspired you to launch Florida MedConnect?
So for me, I first started at USF and I really wanted to do research my first year. So I really just like dove into like contacting professors, asking if I could join their lab, talking to them, meeting with them, and trying to figure out if their lab was like a right fit. I actually didn't end up finding like the perfect lab for me until my second year, just because I really wanted a lab that was had weekly meetings, where I got to work very hands-on with the professor or graduate students and assistants there. So I think that that was my biggest struggle, is finding the perfect lab. And I think a lot of students sometimes like they have difficulty finding research, which is why we started Florida MedConnect in the first place. But on top of that, it's also just finding the perfect lab that your interests align with, along with like you yourself. So I think that was my biggest difficulty that I also talked to Shivanshu about. I just told him that I had so many like difficulties finding a perfect lab for me. And for him, I think he knew a lot more research than I did. And he already came into USF with like an idea of how research should work. So I think I really like talked to him a lot about how I should figure out like where my perfect lab will be.
So, speaking of your perfect lab, you mentioned that you found a lab your
hmm
sophomore year. So, where did you end up becoming a research assistant?
So I currently work as a research assistant at the College of Behavioral Health with Dr. Cho. She's no longer affiliated with USF, but I still work with her. And I think what really stood out to me about Dr. Cho was she was such an amazing professor and also a mentor. And along with that, she had a research assistant. Also, she was also PhD Sharon Medina, and she was absolutely amazing to me. I got to work so many times one on one with her, and I got to talk to her so many times. She taught me so many things about the entire research process, and I think that's really where I learned why I loved research in my second year, was because I had such amazing mentors that really taught me like this is the right way to do research, but this is also like this is the reason why like we do this. And I think for me, reasoning comes in a lot for my understanding and why I actually do like things, instead of just like, oh, like this is this is what we do. I need to understand the process and why we do things. So that was really why I ended up loving research, was because I had amazing mentors at USF.
That's amazing. I think speaking of mentorship, what would you encourage students to do when they're looking for a mentor? Because I think that was one of my biggest struggles starting undergrad was I didn't know where to start. I knew nobody here. I don't have any sort of background in healthcare. So what kind of steps would you encourage students to take as they start seeking mentors?
I think the biggest thing is you need to find a person that you can talk to freely, not freely as in like crazy things, but freely as in like professionally, and also like you find that like they're a great person to work with and they're also very like-minded as you. So this thing also includes like your friends, doesn't have to be a professor, but in terms of a professor, if they're super willing to work hands-on with you and they spend a lot of time just like teaching you things even though you may not ask for it specifically, I think that's an amazing mentor. I think also at the same time, if you ask them things and they go out of their way to help you, I think that's also what makes an amazing mentor.
But I think like on the side of that, like in choosing your mentor, you also have to make sure that you do set like your clear lines as to like where you want to see yourself in research, like 4 years down the line when you're graduating. And so I think when it comes to like being a mentor and like being a proper mentee is really like when you're coming into those meetings and you're meeting a research professor for the first time, don't be afraid to be blunt with them at times, because at the end of the day, they're trying to help you, but you're also helping them, right? So make sure that you want them to listen to you, right? And making sure that communicative and that trust is built over time. And if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to say no. The great thing about USF is that there's a lot of opportunities, and that's something that I learned pretty difficultly in the first year because I wasted a lot of time in labs that I simply just didn't like. And it's not because of the culture there, it's because that it just didn't fit with what I was looking for. And a lot of people get scared in the fact that they're like, okay, but this opportunity will never come back again. I promise it will. So don't be scared to take that next step in your life because it's what you want to do, not what they want you to do. Because you want to be a doctor at the end of the day, right? Not them. So that's important to make
I
sure.
think that's really good advice. And I think that as a younger student, as an underclassman, it can be hard to find the confidence to do so because there are so many things that are unknown.
Yeah. We talked about your challenges and path towards research, but Shivanshu, what about you? Where are you kind of doing research and where have you found your opportunity here at USF?
Yeah, so when it really comes to like my opportunities, and our first year journey was very similar, except the fact that I was working with a lab outside of USF at the time when I'd come into college in the first place, just because I was pretty interested that summer as well. And so I tried to get into the research field. Finally, coming into the second year, I found solace in a couple other places than USF, but I would say like TGH is also part of USF. So most of my lab work is done with either TGH professors right now. So Dr. Ping is one of them, and also mainly a researcher at Advent, who's also a surgeon. And he's really my main mentee right now, but his name was Dr. Secondi, and I still work with him today. So that's really where I get the base of my research from, because I found the fact that like I didn't like wet lab personally. There's a lot of people that do, but I was aiming for a clinical side. And so that's where I found my happiness and where I wanted to be for the next couple of years.
I think the amazing part about USF is that we are in a hub for everything healthcare. I mean, whether that's here at USF through like USF Health, but we partner with places like the VA, Tampa General Hospital, there's Advent, there's Baycare, there's like a plethora of different opportunities. And that means there's a plethora of different doctors and healthcare professionals. Even if you don't want to be a doctor, there's other opportunities that exist out there. And I think that's something that really drives students to come here because there is so much opportunity here.
Yeah, it is really what makes like medicine so possible at USF. And I think like a lot of students that I mentee even right now, like a lot of my friends and family friends, I tell them to come to USF if they're going to be a doctor, just because there's infinite opportunities here. Like, and a lot of people are scared to go to USF just because like, so maybe as not as prestigious as an Ivy League, but it really comes to where you want to be in your life and making the decisions that get you there. And the good thing about USF is that the opportunities around you are aligned around that fact. That if you wanted to be the best, you could easily make like a world out of this place. And your resume could blow anyone in the country out of the water if you wanted it to. So going to the right college is all about, can you trust yourself to be the best? And if you want to be the best, then do it. Don't complain about your circumstances around you is important.
And I think you can make the most out of any situation. I think, especially at USF, there's always something for everybody. And I mean, both of you kind of touched on that with your research journeys. I've noticed that with my volunteering opportunities. I volunteer at a free clinic. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and maybe I'm not as interested in an aspect of it, but there are other aspects that are incredible and super engaging. But with every sort of opportunity comes its own set of challenges and obstacles. And both of you noticed a gap, especially within the pre med community here at USF, which prompted you to create a new organization. Do either of you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so because we just saw a huge, I guess like jump to becoming a researcher in a lab, we wanted something to give a platform for students that kind of helped them make that jump between like no research to research. And so the way we kind of did that was through research posters. And so research posters are kind of like a simpler way, I wouldn't say easy, but a simpler way to kind of get into research. You can do a research poster on like any topic that you like. It can be literally anything that you're interested in, and you can do your own research and you can make a poster out of that. And I think that's why we started with research posters, is because it's not as complex as like immediately writing a paper or something, but it's definitely on the easier side that students can also do on their own. Do you
Yeah,
want to?
and it was really like inspired by the sense of labs that, especially are outside of USF, do require a lot of experience when you're getting in. And I know
Mhm.
I was applying to like Moffitt labs, and they always came back to me with, you need a little more experience before you come to Moffitt. And that was a really difficult thing for me because I was simply a first year. How was I supposed to do this within like a couple of months, right? And that's where we made the community happen, because we were like, can we offer this package, I guess, that you could get a little better on your research field, get more people into the research field entirely, and then maybe get them into better labs down the line. Like, that's the goal of our organization. And we said yes, right? And it was a system that a lot of people didn't believe in at the time. In fact, our first cohort in the summer was around 20 students that I just managed to scrape together with between like friends, a couple of classmates that
I
I
was one of
found,
them.
and her. She was one of our first cohort members. And it was just 20 of us, and one professor and I menteed all of them at that point. And then finally the system worked. So then we launched in fall of last year, and finally like rapidly grew to around 200 students in like our first sign up. And so that was like an amazing experience, but that like first summer cohort of proving that our system does work, our proposed system does work, was a really difficult process. But when it did, it was like one of the most rewarding things that we did have at our club.
I can imagine that creating an organization from the ground up can be super overwhelming, especially you said you started with such a small cohort and now you're rapidly growing. Can you share the journey of how you started, kind of, and maybe what challenges you faced along the way? Of you said maybe people didn't really believe in you, and what you guys were aiming to do to where it is now and where you might plan to be in the future.
Yeah, so I guess like talking about that first cohort, like diving into it a little deeper, the problems began like from like the very first time we started meeting, because as I said, it was like 20 students, and it was I believe it was 5 groups at the time, so 4 students in each group. And we gathered into like a meeting, and like I asked them to come to like the library that's like near us in like New Tampa area at that point. And I think it was only like maybe like 5 or 6 that actually like ended up showing up. And so from that beginning, I was like, okay, well, where should we really start with this program, and how do I get these kids to like believe in me? Because at that point, it was not only college students with us, but it was also a couple of high schoolers, because I was genuinely scraping at that point. So that's where we were at. And I was like running through like teaching them how to do research. I learned that the beginning of a lot of students isn't really where I thought it would be. And then it forced me to change as a teacher at the first time. And slowly but surely, we got through the rest of the weeks. And finally, 2 months passed by, and we'd got into our first poster. But from there, proving the system to now expanding to 200 students, that was also a wide jump, because
Mhm.
it needed a lot of social media presence to actually make that happen. And so one of our most successful ad campaigns that we ever ran on our Instagram, that basically made our club what it is today, I would say, is the fact that we would reach out to professors and try to get lab positions from them. Because as we all know, and the reason that we started this organization, lab positions are hard to get at USF.
Mhm.
So can we make a system where we run those lab positions in the fact that we take the applications, we sort them through, send them over to a professor, and then they'll select those students. And we did. So we got around 10 lab positions, I would say, in total. And over time, we put them out on our Instagram one by one. And each of them, I think the first one had 150 applicants, and our last one had nearly 400 applicants. And so that's when we knew that our Instagram had grown nearly 10x in like just the span of 3 weeks, I would believe. And that was that. And then a week later, we released signups, and it sold out in around an hour almost.
You can't imagine our surprise when we put out that sign up genius where people were signing up for topics and it filled so quickly. Like neither of us anticipated the amount of people who would sign up because we genuinely didn't know like truly how many students were actually interested in joining. So seeing like that number and just like that website being so slow because there's so many people on it was so insane to me.
Yeah, her Gmail literally like crashed because like on a sign up genius, you have to get notifications every time someone signs up.
Mhm.
And it was just flying
Yeah.
in
I couldn't
notifications.
even see my own personal notifications because of how many notifications there were.
So that was a great experience, I would say. But that's really like what we based our foundation of the organization up from.
So, with Florida MedConnect growing exponentially, almost it sounds like, if students are interested in joining, where can they find out more information? I know you mentioned your Instagram. Maybe you guys have an email.
Hey, so you can find us on Instagram at FL MedConnect. And then you can also, we recently started an FMC club at USF. So you can also find us on Bulls Connect. It's called Florida MedConnect Student Chapter. And then you can also email us. You can email us at Shivanshu at Florida MedConnect or Elaine.pan at Florida MedConnect.
So, beyond research, what else do you kind of help your students with in terms of mentorship, volunteering, so on?
So we recently just released our mentorship program. And it is basically where students get to get paired with another upperclassman, and they need to have like research, volunteering, leadership, so just so that they can mentor underclassmen on kind of like how to go through their and navigate their pre-med journey. So we recently just launched that. And then on top of that, we also have Health Literacy Initiative. I currently lead Health Literacy Initiative, and it is basically 4 programs, each tailored to a different population at Tampa Bay. So let me just like quickly run through them. So the first program is called Health in Your Language Campaign, and it is basically where we make infographics and we translate them to, I think, approximately 12 plus different languages.
Wow.
And yes, we have all of our volunteers do that for us, and it's absolutely amazing. They're amazing. They're such hard workers. And once they're translated, we donate them and we hand them over to different community partners. So currently we're partnered with Ramwe, Radiant Hands, and Tampa Bay Street Medicine. I believe Tampa Bay Street Medicine is partnered with USF too. So
Mhm.
that's also amazing that we get to give back to like the USF community. And then on top of that, our second organization is called Pages of Comfort. And if students were to join that program, it is a semester-long program where they get to make a book from beginning to end. So you start with an idea and then you work with a group to the very end to make a full, like, complete book. And after they make it, we will produce it, we will publish it, we will print it, and then donate them to children's hospitals. So I believe this month we are donating 150 books to St. Joseph's Children's Hospital and Children's Cancer Center, which is super exciting. And then our third organization is Health Literacy for Seniors. I think seniors is a super underserved community, especially when they are such a large community too. And every Saturday we will go to a senior center. We're partnered with a bunch of different senior centers around USF. And volunteers get to go in, kind of just spend like one-on-one time while doing interactive activities with them, teaching them about their health and also just like learning more about them. And they just spend an hour with them every single weekend, and it's so nice. I think it's a very gratifying kind of like service to do. And then our last and final one, which is very new. I don't even think I've really released it yet on our Instagram, but we are making a challenge for middle school and high school students. And this challenge is that they design a health product that they think will serve a health issue in their community. And so they'll work on it throughout an entire, I think like almost 6 months, I think. And at the end, they will come to USF and they will do a pitch, like a Shark Tank pitch, which I think is super exciting, in front of a panel of judges that we're planning on inviting to the competition. And I think that's just like a way to get them involved early on into, if they're interested in medicine, to start thinking about that. So yeah, this is a very quick run through of our 4 programs.
And I guess like dodging in there, like the senior center program, I would say is like one of the best programs that we do have, just because like we do health literacy on like PowerPoints and stuff, but that's not all we do. We come in and we'll do different like activities with them and like diving into them. Like one of them was like we painted potted plants with them. So we did like pots with them and then we put plants in them and then like watch them grow like over time as we like come back and visit, as well as like we're gonna do a tie-dye activity with them where we tie-dye a
This
t-shirt with them.
Saturday.
And so those things like really like make you smile and make them smile the whole time. And so I think like helping out that community and like the rest of them are like very amazing.
I think that being involved, not only serving students here on campus at USF, but in the sense that you're going out into the community within USF Health and also the Tampa Bay community is extremely important, because that's at the heart of what medicine and health professionals aim to do, right? Is to give back. And I like that you're saying, like, talking about prevention with the infographics that you guys do to
Mhm.
multiple different languages. I think it's amazing what you guys are doing and that you're growing so much. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. You can tell that you're super passionate about what you're doing and growing the organization as a whole.
No, yeah, it's been a lot of work, especially like when we were going through it and when we were developing like her program, like the HLI side of the thing. We were studying for the MCAT. And
Oh my
so at
gosh.
that point, we were working like 10-hour
I
days
didn't have a life.
almost. Like it was like difficult to have anything after or before. Like we would wake up. I think at some point we decided to start waking up at 5 a.m.
Mhm.
Just because we wanted to get some MCAT studying done, get lunch, and then we'd go back and do like the FMC side of things and build the organization forward a little more. And then finally at night, maybe have a little fun, but that was like about that for like the life side of things for like a couple of months. Especially like I think that was like December to February, March area. That was really the most difficult part, but we were just committed enough that it was gonna work out. So
Well, you're paying it forward. I'm sure that you've had a lot of like success stories with
Mhm.
students in the chapter. So would you mind sharing maybe some of your favorites of like a student that did something really cool or got a really cool research position?
I think I can talk about one of the students. So at FMC, I also worked as a project lead. And so what that means is kind of like you work weekly with students and help them kind of guide them and develop their research poster with them. And so one of the students that I worked with, she I didn't know her at first and she joined my group and I was kind of just like meeting with her. And then eventually over time I kind of realized how passionate about like research she was and also how hardworking she was. And at that time, I think I also was releasing HLI position, like leadership positions on Instagram, and she applied to it. And I was interviewing her, and I ended up selecting her because she was so motivated. She was like such a motivated student. I also saw that like throughout like my time teaching her, she was also just such a hard worker. And so I ended up picking her as my lead for my Health in Your Language campaign, one of the programs at HLI. And eventually, over time, she ended up becoming my vice president and one of my close friends. And she's honestly like amazing. I'm just like so proud of her and everything she's done so far and how much she's grown throughout this time. She's also helped me so much. Like she's honestly a lifesaver.
yeah, so I guess on my side, my biggest success story would probably just be her. I can't lie. Because
That's so
so
sweet.
I guess like personally on my side, like I've never been like a project lead because I've always been like I guess at the top. So I don't like mentor students anymore. So for me, it's definitely her. Like I picked her out of the project lead pool because like she used to be one of my students, right? In the first cohort, very first cohort, she produced like and her poster we still use as an example like to this day just because it was so good.
Thank
And
you.
so it's like I think it's like one of the first on our website right now. And after that, I brought her up because like she was great, right? And she started to learn a lot about research at that time too. So from project lead to now president of her own 4 programs at our initiative, I think that's probably the biggest success story we've had at our group today.
That's incredible.
It's
And
a
I
big compliment.
I know friends from honors foundations to president and vice president. It's definitely a significant accomplishment, not only for our students here at USF being able to reach so many audiences, getting them engaged in the health community, but also for yourselves. So, has this starting this organization bought you any sort of unique opportunities for your professional growth?
100%, I would say. And like this goes back to like the lab that I was doing at TGH now. That was an opportunity that, instead of me cold emailing people, the professor sent me an email and was like, hey, like, we're looking to do this project. I'm really interested in it. And I wanted you to take lead on this project. And I was like, that's amazing, right? Like, I would love to do this opportunity. And so, me and her and I think like one other student together are now working on the IRB for that project because the professor wanted it to happen, and he was like, I think your organization should lead us forward in that. And so now it's like 3 students and around, I think, like 7 professors on that project, and we're the ones writing it, and they gave us like critique and everything. And we're even through 7 professors on that project, we're probably going to be like the first ones on that paper and
Wow,
going forward.
congratulations.
And so, thank you. And so, when it comes to like the opportunities that we've been bought, I think it's been amazing. And it really becomes like a difficult balance because I guess as pre-medical students ourselves and as people that want to get into medical school, a lot of things come across our desk where we're like, hey, like, I would love to be on this project, right? It would be pretty beneficial for me. But making like the tough decision to be like, no, like, it's for the students. It
Mhm.
it becomes difficult at times, but we're also like wanting to build the students forward at all times. So that's also a decision you're going to be forced to make if you're making an organization like this, because sure, it'll be beneficial to you, but it's more beneficial to people that actually need it.
I think the thing is with that too is like we come across so many amazing opportunities all the time. And obviously, like as a pre-medical student, like you want to do these amazing opportunities. But also, I think with our schedules and everything, like first of all, it's not even possible. But second of all, it's also like we ourselves are doing such amazing like things that we're also like super passionate about. And so at the same time, it's like we want to focus on those things that we have currently and then pay the opportunities that we get forward to the students that we have so they also get such amazing opportunities that they're passionate about too.
I think like that's really important for a lot of people because when it comes down to it, I know like I was very impatient like in my second year, especially when it came to like my personal research, not the organization. I was really impatient and I really wanted to get like some type of reward out of it, right? Like maybe a poster, a publication, or some type of like result at the end of the day. And for me, that wasn't coming fast enough. And so I decided to like jump around labs a lot. And it really doesn't help because a lot of people decide to commit their time to a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, if you're committing yourself to maybe 1 or 2 things, you're going to get a bigger result out of that. And that's something like I learned the difficult way because I was like in maybe like 4 or 5 labs at one point, but I couldn't do anything in any of them, right? Because I just couldn't put my full time and cooperation to any. And so slowly but surely, like I cut down and then finally got to like the group of labs that I made me feel happy. And the results did definitely come in because at that point I was spending like the proper amount of time, right? 10 to 15 hours per lab per week and getting it better every single day. And that's what really pushed my like personal career, like forward when I broke through that mental barrier in my life. So I would definitely say that's a good tip for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so easy to overcommit, and I've definitely had that problem in the past. Um, but I think the biggest thing is growing and learning from that opportunity and developing trust with the people that you're working with. And I think a lot of students are going to be inspired by your story and your ability to create something from the ground up. What advice would you have for students who would want to create a new opportunity or a new organization on campus?
I think the biggest thing is to just do it. I think a lot of people have apprehensions about like, oh, like what if this goes wrong? What if this? I know Shivanshu had that issue where he was like, what if Florida MedConnect was like, nobody wanted to join it or whatever, or we don't get enough professors. I think just do it, and then as things come, obviously deal with them. But I think the hardest thing obviously is starting it and once you start it, it just like it comes through, like everything just flows and moves. And I think that's the biggest part, is just doing it, like starting it. Don't be like too scared to just start just because you think things will go wrong, because things will eventually go wrong anyways. So you just have to start.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Like as she was saying, like Florida MedConnect maybe stayed in my Notion and sat in my Notion for like 6 months because I just wasn't ever ready to like put it out. But the biggest tip like I always give, and I heard this like on another podcast that I was listening to at the time, if your product comes out and you didn't have any problems with your first release, you released it way too late in your career. Because if it comes out and you don't have issues, that's probably your fault because you made it too perfect in your own time that it could have been growing this whole time. Because if anyone sees your product and it's already perfect, no one's probably going to see it because you never grew it enough to like actually grow it to an audience, because the people that found it, they're just going to keep it and that's it. They'll move on. But if you're going to actively grow it with the community around you, that's when it becomes like a bigger thing. And I guess like a more like general tip to like people starting organizations on campus is definitely to do something different, but also do something that you yourself would be happy to join. Because a lot of people today start organizations where it's like, I guess like cookie cutter organizations is like what I would say, because a lot of them like will offer the same opportunities, the same like GBMs together, come in, like listen to a couple of professors. And of course, a lot of those things are helpful to a lot of students. But when it comes down to clubs that really make a difference, and a really great example of that was like MIM's growth, Minority in Medicine, over the past
Mhm.
year. They just started 1 year ago, and now they're at around 500 or 600 members in their group me. The path that they took, I would say, if you're starting an organization, is something that I would study, because if you're looking to grow an organization, and they did it a pretty interesting way, because instead of what we do, where we give only opportunities to the students, they gave a lot of opportunities, but also they grew a community because they're people,
Mhm.
they're also very connected in their own life. And they like each other in MIM. Like they want to
Mhm.
cooperate, they want to help each other. Like, for example, they just had a bake sale yesterday and it's sold out because instead of other organizations just being there, they have a community that actually trusts them and believe them. And so a couple organizations that I would study if you want to be great, if you want to be the next big organization on campus, is definitely us. I would say like a good way is to study us, because our method is going to be, best valued to students. And so every single time all opportunities go out to students. There's nothing at our organization where you're just a member and you're coming into GBMs, et cetera, et cetera. Every single student that joins FMC, they have a research position here. They have a volunteer position here. They might be a mentee. That makes a good organization. Another way to make that happen is to make a good community happen. That's a good way that MIM does it. And so I would definitely say, like, if you can find a good balance between those two approaches, that's where a good organization lies.
Shivanshu and Elaine, that was incredible advice from you both. We are super excited to see what comes next for FMC and for the rest of your careers. So thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, everyone, welcome back to the studio. What do you think about the podcast, Reva?
I loved it. I thought they brought really unique insights into a pre-health sphere where things can feel very independent and isolating, and they're really taking collaboration to the next level as they build this new student organization, Florida MedConnect.
I completely agree, Reva, and I think that they have really unique initiatives, such as, taking an infographic and translating it into 12 or more languages and kind of really incorporating students into the USF community and even outside the USF community. So I think this is a really great way for students to get involved. And if you're interested in getting involved, don't forget to check the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for all upcoming events, updates, and news.
That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded at the Judy Genshaft Honors College Tampa campus at the University of South Florida. Production assistance is provided by USF students Vama, Shah, and Sandra Napolitano. Thank you all so much for listening. Please do not forget to rate and review our podcast. We really appreciate your feedback. Please join us next time to hear more about honor stories and talk to members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College. Until next time, go Bulls!